Now I'm giving talk about for better quality, teacher education and teachers' work in the educational ecosystem. When I use the term ecosystem, it's very much how collaboration can be organized and why that is so important. So this ecosystem ideology comes from many kinds of roots. Okay, so Sanna and Jari has presented what has happened in last years, or mainly last year. So my presentation is little historical, because very often people have image and understanding of Finnish education, what is just now going on. But then we have to understand what are the roots, why we are at that phase of our educational system, what are the basics and roots behind of this process where we are now. And that is something what I give now little overview and understanding from history to present. Why we are emphasizing teacher education, why we are emphasizing certain aspects in school curriculum and then connect them to the teacher education. So I give a short history of Finnish educational system and strategic changes, what has happened during last decades, and what is the vision of teacher education, in which way that is connected the whole educational system. And in that presentation I use this term educational ecosystem. So historical roots, yes, we have to go back 1950s. We can now say that Finland is on the top in international level. But we weren't 50 years ago. After the war, the education level was very low in Finland. In 2015s, when we looked at population over 20 years, there wasn't education available for them, even though we were literate, because Finnish people have been literate since hundreds of years, because we couldn't get married if we wouldn't be able to read. But having education in rural area, 35% were without education. In southern part it was better, but in northern rural area, almost half of the population didn't have real education. And at that time, industrial society was growing. So how Finland can survive with low education and coming more and more industrial work and society? So we have the situation in those times when students were 10-year-old, or in practice their parents had to decide whether they go to more academic road or whether they have to stay very low education and go to vocational road. Academic road was mainly for elite people, and there was tuition fees. Parents have to pay that student go to the school. And only very small amount people have that opportunity. And those who couldn't go to this academic road, then they had short education and they didn't have any access to higher education. Big national debate started. And that was big debate that we have to change. And finally, 1968, new law was given and we had a new comprehensive school. and this parallel system was abolished. This new type of school mean that every kid, every children, not depending where they are living or whether their parents are wealthy enough to pay school fees, everybody could have good education, 9 years education free of charge, and every citizen should have equal opportunity to receive basic education. And that was regardless of their age, where they were living, financial situation, gender, mother tongue, or residence. And school was free for everyone. And then it was also decided that provider is the local municipal. That was very big change in those days. A lot of political debates, how that can happen that earlier elite school and those other low education groups, how these students can put in the same classroom, in the same school, and those teachers who were prepared for teaching those selected students, now they have to teach different kinds of students who came from poor families, from areas there wasn't educational earlier opportunities. So that was then also the strategic implementation. This new type of school were started from the northern part of Finland. Finland is very long country. Even though we are small population, we have very long country, and this northern part, that was the worst in education, and they have the least educational services. And we started from northern part, and then finally it came to the southern part, capital city area, and finally the whole, during 10 years, this reform was implemented. I want to say that in Finland, when some reform is started, we don't expect that it happens in 1 year. Happens in one election time. It was 10 years time that we implemented that, because people need time to mature and be able to implement that reform. We also in those years massive teacher in-service training, because teachers need new capacities, especially attitudinal capacity, because it was totally new that they have to take all children to the same school, not dividing them to elite school and ordinary school. So we have this new school, but it also had some features what we don't have at that moment. When we moved to this new type of education, then we have to make some kind of decision that everybody was satisfied at decision-making level. We started that we first have so-called tracking system. We put students in that school in 3 different achievements level: lower level, intermediate level, high level, because teachers wouldn't accept that they have to take mixed ability group in same classroom. But then, when it was 1980s, then teachers were more prepared to teach mixed ability groups, and we abolished this tracking system, because now we realized that if we track students to different groups, then we also prevent their further lifelong learning, because they didn't have real abilities to continue in high school or secondary level, because they have lower level courses in math or languages. And that's why we wanted to make unified standard, minimum standard for everyone, which gives opportunities to continue education in the next level, which means in the lower and upper secondary level. But also that means that there must be more and more support for those kids who have learning difficulties. And that is special in Finnish education, that we want to take care those children who have difficulties. Many countries want to take care of the most talented children. We put emphasis on low learners and those who have difficulties, which is big difference if comparing to many other countries. So that is important, that every student needs opportunities and skills to continue. So that means that now we didn't have any more streaming or tracking those different levels. We have mixed ability groups. We have special need education support. We started to speak more and more inclusion, that every children, even they have serious special needs, they should also include to the same school and classrooms, but also that teacher education must be higher level. Everybody must have 5-year master degree, and it make also teacher education very popular. Because there was now new challenges, there was new working conditions, it became academic degree with very high professional and also moral education. So when we're speaking about strategies and strategic decisions, we have even in our constitution now that education, equal opportunities is part of our constitution, that everyone has the right to basic education free of charge, and underlining education understanding is based on equity, equal opportunities. That is the governing theme, and when we are evaluating our education system, that is the reference point. Do education serve that equal opportunity principle? So that is also school law to 1998. That is very strong responsibility for education, that they are preparing students for civilization and national development, and also growth to humanity and ethical responsible membership in society. You can see that in our education system is very strong value basis, and it's even in school law that there are certain important values that education should provide to every learner and also to every teacher. So what does that mean in our educational ecosystem? When I use that term, it comes from biology, where you know that in natural environment, if we have healthy ecosystem, like in forestry or in heaven, in sea, or in natural environment, different parts are working together. Different species in natural environment, they are very tightly interconnected. And that means that there are diversity, there are interconnectedness, and continuous information flow. They have to adjust themselves, they are also vulnerable, and they are systemic wholeness. That kind of thinking is now very typical in medicine and more different social sciences, that if we want to get real, healthy, sustainable system, the different pieces must be interconnected. And there must be information flow. That means collaboration all the time, that these who are working, they know what happens in different parts of the system. So the systemic change is needed if we want to get some reforms. And that means that in education, also different partners have to work together in interconnected way and have systemic wholeness. So when we think about teacher education, either in Finland or in many other countries, we can see that there are many actors. Ministry of Education, there are other ministries, there are working life, national educational authorities, universities, schools, evaluation system, healthcare. How much they know about each other? Are they really working together? So that is something what we try to say. This has to be interconnected, and means that when we think educational system, there we can see that there are macro level decisions at very high level, but there are also schools and universities. They have also own systems, and then there are learner, it's individual student in individual teacher. How these are working, can we get more and more information from different actors, making that more real working. So if we want to get reforms working, there must be national level, regional level, local level, school level, connected and connectedness and interaction, where different opportunities are to make reform really implemented. So when we 75, a long time reform our teacher education, the major principle was then that teacher education should be in universities, but also different teacher education earlier programs should be unified, so that class teacher and secondary school teacher, kindergarten teachers, they should have more common core. And then teacher education expertise should be increased, theory and practice should be integrated, and pedagogical studies and academic subject studies should be combined better than earlier. And studies related to society and educational policy should be added to teacher education programs, and teacher education should be continuous and ensure teachers' development throughout their careers. If you now look those new development aims, what we are now implementing in teacher education forum, we can see that the same aims are still, but now they are moved to new context, new modern context. So that means that we try to get all these levels to working together and put teacher education very tight connected curriculum development and different kinds of development work in schools. So Finnish educational ecosystem, I could say it was a long way to equity and inclusiveness, and based on the idea that we need continuity. So the continuity, I could give this kind of short historical summary. We started comprehensive school for all almost 60 years ago. Then we moved this no tracking local curriculum system, where teachers and principals take more and more responsibility to creating local-based curriculum. Then in 90s, we have new concept of knowledge and understanding. Constructivism came to educational sciences, which means that we can't transmit knowledge to children. We have to help understand how they learn and how they responsibility for their own knowledge construction. And then finally, in our school curriculum 2000, social constructivism came more and more, that we need collaboration in knowledge creation, and then as Sanna just described today, how well-being and transversal new 21st century skills came also to our local and national curriculum. But teacher education was all the time being part of this process. At first there was this massive teacher education and new act for teacher education programs. Then teachers became as a curriculum designers, and the teacher education program had to take this aspect involved. Then a common understanding of teacher professional role, being a teaching profession, actor, and pedagogical studies were unified for different teacher groups, and then also teachers became more experts of learning. As Sanna just described, there has been big movement from teaching to learning, which means that teachers are now taking more and more care how students learn. And secondary issue is how I teach. Certainly I need to think how I teach, but what is the outcome? It's not only that I'm teaching, my kids must also learn something, and that's the responsibility of teachers. And now there was also established as teacher education forum, crossing boundaries, putting different partners to make future for Finnish teacher education. So that was the historical part. And then during those times, decades, teacher education national evaluation have implemented around every 10 years. And several research projects have also working, making this system well functioning and well working. So just very few words about value basis. So our value basis is based on equity, that every student needs sufficient learning skills and opportunities to educate and develop themselves in different learning environments throughout their lifespan, which means that now the equity is the reference point. And there are certain important issues that should be connected in this kind of ecosystem. Understanding how every children can have lifelong learning skills, how inclusiveness is integrated in schools, but also teacher education programs, how national evaluation system is working for such a way that it gives information for developing, not only having some ranking. We don't rank schools, we don't rank teachers. We want to have information how we can develop our system better, and how high quality teacher education is part of these reforms and teachers' professional autonomy is integrated. So that is the main, I could say, circle of ecosystem when we want to get reform. Earlier times, in Finland as in many countries, there were the idea that we have to measure students' cognitive achievements or what they have achieved in schools. Nowadays, I think that more important is that how schools can provide services. Now attention is paid the whole organization capacity to services that everybody can learn equally or have good lifelong learning skills. And that is something I think that put focus more how we can produce services, not only how someone is learning in such sense that we could get some score to him or her. We need evaluation of students, but only, I could say, or mainly, how we can support them. So what is the function of that examinations and evaluation? In Finland, the main national principle is evaluation is the tool for development and support. That is the main ideological basis. So that came I think that one part of our ecosystem that it's important to improve something. And we don't have national testing. That is student evaluation for encouraging students to learn better and have more learning skills. So I think that in Finnish educational system, ecosystem, the idea is that how to move from control to quality culture. How every school, every level can take their responsibility and give their own contribution. And that we call trust. That we trust that people are doing their best if we give opportunity to implement their own decision making and own working capacity. So what is needed? Cooperation between different levels and actors, the focus on the whole system and putting different ministers and ministries working together, national agency, curriculum agencies to working together, local providers working together, school teachers, parents, and other partners. Invite them to make good education. So, equity and high quality education is never status quo. We can't trust in Finland that it continues without effort. We need all the time work for that. And we need evidence for that. That's why we use evaluation for that. And that is from our National Board of Education official slide, that education is developed in partnership. And there are all these partners we need in curriculum planning, special need and support, and healthcare, that we can get those good services, as I mentioned, how we can provide educational services. So, if I would say 3 important elements we should have in strategic planning working together. They are curriculum system with some basic values, what we have equity and inclusion, teacher education, how we can educate professional, high quality professional which take their autonomy and responsibilities, and evaluation system which are giving feedback and evidence how to improve something. So these are processes. It takes time, but also I think that's the only way to have sustainable changes. In OECD report, they have analyzed our system and they have concluded that Finnish strategy has taken a long time to mature and is composed of several interrelated issues. And this is a complex practices that has emerged over time, and it must be maintained since any weaknesses in one component will undermine other practices. So in Finland we don't have any miracle of education. We have only persistent work for education. So thank you very much indeed.